very good evening, and you're very welcome to the second Business and Enterprise Show with your host Hugh Leddy. And joining me this evening on the programme is Padraig Smith to talk about the property market in general and a few other subjects as well. Padraig, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Hugh.
Padraig, of course, former, omitted to say there on the way in the introduction, a former president of the IPAV. Of course, that's the professional body. Tell us a bit about the IPAV. We'll deal with that bit of homework first.
IPAV set up 50 years ago to promote rural auctioneers in Ireland, and has gone from strength to strength. It had started off with probably 20 or 30. Last year we had 850 members, and we're hoping to get to cross 1,000 members in the next couple of years. But we had a 50. I was president the year 2011 to 12, April to 11 to 12, and that was the 50th anniversary of our organisation. So it's going from strength to strength, and good team of men at the helm, men that has been there for the last 20, 30 years, and they are driving it on week by week, and we have a good chief executive as well in Dublin, and a number of staff. We're in 129. We're 129. Can't hear the rest in Dublin.
Yes.
A good location, and very easy to contact us there on the website if you want an IPAV website. It's
the professional. It gives the organisation a huge credibility.
Yeah, the Irish professional. We are the only property organisation or auctioneer organisation. The IVA has been now linked to RICS, and they're associated with them in the last couple of years. We are the only actual auctioneering body in Ireland.
Very good. Now tell me, we'll get on now to the property market. Of course, you would be one of those that are on the ground. In your opinion, has it levelled out? Has it stopped falling?
It has. It has stopped falling in the last 6 to 9 months. This year prices have levelled out. There is no 20,000-30,000 of a fall. You find it in odd time in properties maybe overpriced, where people have decided, right, we'll take them down 20 or 30,000. But anything that was priced right in the springtime of the year is still similar prices at the moment.
Yes, it's holding. That's certainly for anyone that needs to or wants to,
Well, somebody that wants to invest now or start to buy in a bit of property, or is thinking of coming back to buy a house or something like that, basically it's the other way it'll be going, and it'll move back up pretty fast when the market does start to pick up. You'll see the market picking up pretty fast.
How big an impact was the changes legislation with the stamp duty in the last budget? I think it's down to about 2% for commercial now, is it?
It's down to 2%.
Yeah,
it would have helped commercial, but commercial has been very static for the last 2-3 years, because as you can appreciate, a lot of the commercial buildings that was built in the boom time. A lot of people have moved out of them, and the rental for the commercials is got very, very. In Cavan here, you could rent a commercial property for €152 a square foot. So basically, it's mighty valiant. People never said they'd ever see it.
Yeah, how big an impact is the fact that the banks are not lending, or we hear every day that the banks are not lending?
Well, there were stories out there that the banks are not lending. The banks are lending, Hugh, and they're lending a certain amount of money to you have to be a very good client, you have to have everything in order, and you have to have a good programme ahead for the bank to lend. You have to have your business plan in place, and if you haven't got your business plan in place, and the old saying, the I's dotted and the T's stroked, the bank will not. The criteria is got very strict, but they are lending money.
The SME report, the Small Firms Association, I've seen one of the reports out today and in the media, and I suppose this could apply to the residential as well, that an interesting thing is they were attributing a certain amount of the blame for people not having, the criteria. They said the criteria 25 years ago was very strict for property, and that people nowadays still are not adhering. It's great to blame the banks, and there is definitely a fall off in what they're lending, but they're also, on the other side, is that the body that was set up by the government to oversee the bank's refusals, they are saying that a very small amount of referrals or complaints. So I guess on the other side to the coin is that it's easy to blame the banks all the time, but maybe people hasn't all their homework done either.
Well, partly you could blame the banks, but I remember 25 years ago, I started a business 28 years ago, and my first my first set out was to get. When I started the property business, I went and got a building society, which was permanent. Irish permanent at the time, and I got that in 1984. And at that time, money was very hard got. You had to have savings of 20% or 25% of the price of the property. Then that reduced back to 10%, and then went back to 8%. You had to have savings, and lo and behold, in the mid 2000s, you didn't need money at all.
Yes,
the money was being thrown at you. So it all went a complete circle, and it's gone back to possibly what it was at 25 years ago now. But probably for the younger people coming up and borrowing money to buy property, when we did start out ourselves 28, 30 years ago, whatever it was, buying property, we had to have a certain amount of money saved, and I think it's only right and proper that they would have a certain amount.
Yeah, I wanted to move on and talk about Cavan and property now, but before that I just want to, the new property regulator, like we have regulators in all now in all industries, just explain a little bit about that and what impact it's going to have on the professionals or semi-professionals in the letting sales, excluding auctioneers, someone that would be letting property. How strict is that going to be, and what's the criteria of it?
I understand it's going to be pretty strict. It was set up, it was the 6th of July this year, has been
relatively new.
Relatively new. It has been talked about for 3 or 4 years. I know the regulator himself, Tom Lynch, very well, because due to the fact that I was president last year, I would have met him on a number of occasions. Very straight sound man, straight to the point. Q, I would say that people will have to have everything in order. It'll take a period of time, maybe 3 months, to get the whole thing sorted out. But I think everybody, if they work with Tom Lynch and has everything right, you'll get regulated right. If you haven't got everything in order, well, you're going to have a problem. Right.
We'll move on to the property scene in Cavan, and no one's better in a position than yourself. What attractions are, why would people pick Cavan over any other county?
Cavan, Hugh, has got, we always talk down to the years, we have a lake for every day of the year. We have great golf courses. We have basically, we have a good infrastructure now, because we're only, as you can appreciate, if you get into a car outside this office here tonight, you'll be in Dublin in an hour. The bus is an hour and 15 minutes. Just no later in the day that we had a client come down from Dublin. He sold his property there about 2 weeks ago, and he's been looking around for a bit of property. He picked Cavan as a destination because it was easy to get to Dublin, because the family is in Dublin, and he'll get to Dublin in an hour and 15 minutes on the bus straight up. And the property's good value in Cavan, so he's coming down, and everything's here from. You have got your cinemas, you've got your leisure centre, you've got schools if you require them, you have got a college, you've got basically hotels, the best hotels, many hotels, you have 5, 6 good hotels around the town, and you have a selection of quality pubs and nightclubs. So you basically have everything you would require. Fast food outlets. That's somebody, I had a client down on Monday morning from Southside in Dublin. They were buying a house here. They have kids, and the first thing you look at coming into town, there's a McDonald's, there's a KFC, they have a cinema, they have schools, they have secondary schools, and basically what I found with them was that their kids presently are in school in Gaelscoil. Yes. And they happen to be coming into town, and there's a new Gaelscoil school open in the middle of the town.
Which is fantastic for the town. Now, the FLA really raised the profile of Cavan for the last 3 years, and CavanTV.com as well, you know, broadcasted out throughout the world. What would you see any contact between would many people that you would deal on a day-to-day property,
well, we felt
linked to the FLA,
the FLA was possibly no good to us as an auctioneering business, because we basically weren't fit to work because the crowd of people around. But coming back, there are people has come to the FLA over the last 3 years. They're coming back. Our friends of theirs are coming back now, interested in buying. The scene, how good the town was, the facilities we had in the town, as I mentioned, and they're coming back now with an interest in buying and inquiring about different types of property around the town, even out the country, looking for small cottages, property close to lakes. As I said, we have 365 lakes. So we have an awful lot going for us in Cavan.
So that's now coming back to the colleges there. How important from people that we buy in property? How important is the third level institute to the what do you call it? The image or the structure of Cavan Town, the profile of it is the word.
Definitely, it's a big, very, very big help, because basically, if you have all your schools you require in the one spot, so basically, if kids don't have to leave the town to get national school, secondary school and college, Sure, you couldn't ask for better. We have all here. If they again maybe have to go to Sligo or Dublin or whatever it is, maybe for a different subject, but we have everything to want.
Yeah, and of course on the Dublin Road there we have I think it's fairly imminent now. Well, I've seen it in the media last week that the former Army Barracks I think is going to be acquired by the Cavan Institute.
But thanks be to God, that's a great facility. It was only built in the last 6 or 7 years. It'd be a pity to see it lying idle. It's great to see something coming in on the Dublin Road. We have had is basically all closures for the last number of years, and I'm delighted to hear that something will be open.
That's a good point. Yeah, the VEC, of course, the VEC is very strong and very active in Cavan for a long number of years, haven't they? Promoting.
Oh, they have definitely. The VEC has been there has been very good CEOs of the VEC, and they have promoted the county and the profile of the county very, very strongly over the last number of years. Yes.
Yeah, it and I think the numbers are increasing in the institute on a regular basis, as in on an ongoing basis, year on year.
Listen to the radio last week. There was supposed to be 1,000 pupils graduating last Friday from the college. They said that probably 500 will probably turn up because some of them had gone to work and some of them were in different.
That's certainly a good benefit for the for the economy of the town, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And I think,
and even by people were saying that maybe the town after the Fleadh, and they said it 2 years ago, that the town was maybe quieter after the Fleadh, but this year it seems that impression that the town was going to slow down after the Fleadh has basically turned the other way, and the town seems to be things starting to be moving and different shops starting to open.
The figures that that's confirmed now is 1,400 students this year have enrolled in the college. You were saying graduation there of 1,000 odd.
Yes, so that's
fantastic.
That's another 25%.
Yeah, we were down at I think it was last year or the year before. I was down in Ballyconnell's Leave Russell at the graduation ceremony where Family Connection was graduating, and it's just fantastic to see such a room full of students.
Yes,
and to think that there's 1,400 now coming through this year.
And the main thing for them, if we can create employment over the next 5 to 10 years. That's just the big thing to keep them here, not let them disappear, which they have been, unfortunately, for the last number of years. But again, that's the economy, and we have to work with it. But please God, we may be in the property end of it. I would think we're 5 years. Property market has been falling for the last 5 years. I think at this stage it's leveling out. It'll be on a level picture for the next 3 or 4 years, please God, and maybe after that it'll start to rise.
Do you not think will it not start to rise?
It's very, very hard. Again, Hugh, as you said, it's all back to finance, and you possibly will have an emigrant, people that has emigrated 4 or 5 years ago, maybe coming back, seeing good value, have a bit of money saved, and them, along with the bank lending a little more, may kick, but it'll never be at the rate that we had for the last in the 03, 04, 05, 06, 07. I'd never want to see that again. I think it didn't do the market any good. It just drove the whole thing mad. And I think if it was a leveler picture, maybe of maybe 5% a year or something like that, or 2 or 3% a year of an increase, it would be far better for everybody.
Now, just before we move away from the colleges aspect, the fact that there's 1,000, 1,200 on average, whatever, there, we said 1,400 enrolled, so we'll assume that there's in excess of 1,000 of them people living in Cavan town for 5 days a week. It's a huge boost to the to the town.
Well, it'll definitely be accommodation. You have got the fast food or the restaurants or the takeaways and basically shops,
entertainment,
and then at the weekend, Thursday night and Friday night, why wouldn't it be a big plus?
It'd be remiss of me not to mention, I seen something in the small article in the media last week, but it didn't get much traction, about some auctioneers not wanting to let to students because of the number one, the short-term letting, and how strictly it has to be managed.
Well, it's not the auctioneers, it's the clients themselves that owns the property. Because they feel it's only an 8-9 month letting period.
Yes.
I have their house lying then for 3 months of the year, and they feel that if they had a full 12-month tenant at less money, we'll say you could get maybe 500-600 for a house from students, but you only get it for 9 months. If you're getting 400-450 for a house from a family, you have them there 12 months, and you have less hassle.
Yeah, but is it not, from an economic point of view, is it not better to have it let for 9 months than no months?
Oh, definitely. But letting is pretty good in Cavan.
Yes,
and it's firmed up. And the letting, if you have a good property and it's well in good shape. That means that you have it comfortable and in a pretty good location, or a fair location, you will let it.
Yeah, I think the fact that we have the bypass now with the complete practical ring road round the town, it leaves it easier when people are using the town as well, doesn't it? Insofar as there's less heavy traffic through the town.
That's true. We have no heavy traffic coming through the town queue for the last 3-4 years since they opened the bypass. It's a great help to the town. It's busy enough, the town, and at times slow enough to get around the town with no lorries.
Yes.
So basically, if I wouldn't like to see it with
back what it was 15
years
ago.
If it was back what it was 5 years ago, I think we'd be going on the two-wheeler rather than the four-wheeler.
And I think it's a great credit to the local authority and the executive of that and the councillors, the fact that we have still two pieces of work going on in the close proximity to Cavan. We have the extension of the Cavan bypass. It's going to bypass Balturban now after Butler's Bridge, and then you have the new ring road that's there on the construction.
That's been finished. Yeah, Cavan, there is a right bit of
inward investment.
Inward investment. The county manager is putting, as the saying is, everything he can into keeping the whole show going. And basically, Cavan is. I travel a good few counties, and Cavan, there's as much going on in Cavan and more than a lot of the rest of them.
Yeah. Now, to move on to the one thing, of course, is your specialities. You started with dying to talk about this because I was involved with myself and was rare than one of farm sales.
Well, Hugh, sure, I was a cattle auctioneer before I ever become a property auctioneer.
Yes.
And I have a great, as I say, an insight with the farmer. I've been dealing with the farmer for the last 40 years. And in both Cavan, Monaghan and surrounding counties, because I worked all over in the cattle marts, Roscommon and Leitrim and everywhere, and looked at working all the marts in Cavan. So I would have a great contact with the farmers, and that has helped me immensely over the last 28 years. Because when as soon as I started the property, farmers did come with land to me to sell, and it turned out that over the last 5 to 10 years, it has been my speciality. I like to do the auctions, doing a farm land by auction, and we have then developed, as you know, we've developed a good housing sector in Cavan here and in Ballygem stuff, but and the commercial end of it. But the farm would be our bread and butter.
Yeah, and tell me, can you recall what was? Now, I'm not going to hold you to this, but approximately what is the price of an acre of land when you started? This one thing that amazes me, that it never seems to go down.
Right. Well, in 1984, I started the property business, and I can recall myself. I bought a farm of land in 1983.
Yourself?
Myself.
Yeah.
And
going market price, or you had an advantage, which
no.
You bought it on the open market.
I bought it on the open market. Yeah, I bought land. It was making about 1,300 an acre. But 1984 happens to be a year that land. 74. My apologies.
Yes,
74 is a year. 74 is a year that
was it making. Was it making in excess of the £1,000? That was pound.
It was making in.
No, that was pounds.
84. The land started.
74 now.
74 about 250, 300, 350.
Yes.
Up to 500 an acre. Depends on where you are in the county. If you're close to the county, the main town here, you're probably around 500 an acre. If you're in Ballygem stuff, you're probably about 400. Out the country, 250, 300. There, that was the run of land. It moved up gradually, very, very fast. In the back end of 78, 79, it went to over 1,000, and in odd case under £2,000 an acre. It fell again in the start of 84, or the 80s. 84 about 1,500 an acre thereabouts, and it gradually drifted along up through the basically 1,750, 2,000 acre, up to the mid to late 90s, and then the boom set in. It was probably 3,500 acre, but it never fell until we hit 2007/2008.
But it's still making anything from 6 to 10 an acre, and I've seen there a recent media report where it made 17,500 in Monaghan.
There is an odd case of a very excellent land. They're making more of a queue. And basically, if a farmland comes up close to you, close proximity, and you're a neighbour, and you're interested in farming, and you want to buy a bit of land, well, you're going to put out all the stops to try and buy it. Right, if you have competition, as you're after rightly mentioned, land is making from 6, 7, 8. There's an odd case of 10, and you mentioned about 17. Yes. But
that's an exception.
The average run of land in 2012, I find, is something around 6, 7, 8 an acre. I've sold 7 or 8 farms in the last 6 weeks, 2 months. That's the kind of money you're just making.
Yes. But for anyone, and even again, another fascinating thing is when it was 500 and 600 an acre, people were saying, "Oh God, it's a robbery of money, and you'll never get your money back out of it." But anyone that
they all say that. They all say that you know, at 6, 7, 8,000 an acre, when will I ever get money back? But Hugh, it's an investment. It's a long-term investment. It's over 20, 30 years, and basically, as you pointed out when you did start about the land prices haven't. The only time they fell in my auction year in 28 years was in the period of 28, 29 to 210. That period, when everything else fell, land come back from the extraordinary price it was making, 21, 22,000 an acre, back to reality.
Yes.
Like the land was hovering around 15, 16 an acre, 17 an acre, where it's making now 6, 7, 8 an acre. It fell probably 40, 50%, 40%, but it's levelled out again. It's not falling, it's rising. And if, as I said, if the right bit of land comes up in the right place, there's customers.
And does it not, in the current climate, in light of what from the property boom, has it not been? You don't find it, you know, in the previous 10 years of selling, if you had a few sites in it, it was very, very attractive.
Well, in the 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5 period. Anton, the word road frontage and building potential was the two things was used. And sure, any bit of land, planning was got. You bought a farm of land at 200,000. The next thing you had two sites sold at 60 or 70,000 apiece. So you had the land standing very, very little money.
Yes, and there was loads of people.
There were every day.
I was involved in that end of things myself.
I don't have to tell the priest the prayers.
Yes, it definitely was. So from a point of view, there's still you know, the auction is the auction of the private treaty. Which would be the best?
My preference is the auction. It's fair. It's above board. It's very clean. You go into your auction, you put up a farm, you give it 6 weeks to sell it, give it 6 weeks to get their finances, whatever, in order, and you come in on the day, and basically, you have to know a little bit getting up in front of a crowd of people, but it's the fairest way, it's the easiest way, and it's a very, 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 very safe, very, for the buyer and seller, they know exactly what's going on, and basically at the end of the day, they can both seem to come out very happy of it, and it's my preference to sell it.
Yeah, tell me, the next thing I'm going to ask you about, coming back to the property again, there was a programme on last night, I was watching it, and or last night, they were called Apartment Kids. It was where families are in apartments now and can't afford to move out, we'll say. From a point of view, at what stage, you know, from buying an apartment versus a house, from a young family, does...
Well, I'd say if a young family buying an apartment, I'd say it's...
Well, a couple generally start
off
not all the time, but
in their mid-20s, and they buy an apartment, and then as family arrive, they have 1 or 2 kids, and they decided then, and this was what happened, this did happen through the late 90s and 2000s, there was no problem doing it, but what happened is, them apartments cost possibly in Dublin maybe 300,000 or 400,000 euros. They can't be sold. That's been sold at 50, 60, 70, 80,000 euros. Their equity is completely gone, and the young people, whilst they can afford to move out, they haven't got. They basically can't sell their apartment. That's I'd say that's the main reason that they're left an apartment.
Yes.
But as I said to you there, you can buy a 3-bed semi-house in Cavan for 75, 80,000. You can buy a 4-bed from 80 to 90,000. Basically, you're not a good estate, you'll get up to 100,000. But if you to sell property in Cavan here at the moment, if you price it right, there is no problem selling it.
And then, would you, from your profession, in your professional capacity, for a young couple starting, we say even with 1 kid, you know, apartments now in Cavan Town. I mean, generally the banks don't want to fund apartments. I think
Correct.
that's. And I mean, would you, as opposed, is an apartment in? We should just take Cavan Town. It's no different than any other town. No. At 30, 40, we say between 30 and 50,000 you will buy an apartment. Would you recommend that as opposed to a house at 80 or 90,000?
I would recommend to buy a 3-bed semi or a 3-bed townhouse. You can buy a 3-bed townhouse in Cavan, 65, 70,000. As I said to you, a 3-bed semi for 75. Yes. You know, you'd be better off. You have a garden, you have a front door, and it may be that little bit extra money, but again, for peace of mind, and you know, you're rearing kids in an apartment 3-4 stories up, I don't think it's. I wouldn't like to be doing it anyway.
Yeah, I know. There was one tragedy there in Dublin recently. You know,
Yes.
where they're hard to keep an eye on at that stage, and but hopefully
Better keep them on the
no one
ground
will
level.
ever encounter that. Now, as this is the Business and Enterprise Show, I want to ask you: do you have many inquiries at the moment for people starting businesses or looking for warehouses, that sort of stuff? Would there be any any sign of life in that end of business?
Yes, Hugh, there is. For basically up to about 6 months ago, we wouldn't even get a phone call because there was more businesses closing down than starting. But I even noticed there, even in our own town in Ballygym stuff, we had 3 or 4 shops lying idle there for the last 18 months. Right. They're all after being let within the last 3 weeks.
Great. And how keen are landlords to do deals now?
They will let a good tenant or a reasonable tenant starting off in any business. You will get a good shop to rent for basically under €100 in some towns. Cavan town will be a bit more, but yes. I know in our own town in Ballygym stuff, I let a shop the other day for €95. A fella starting a computer business, and he was working at a company. He's coming in to start on his own.
Great. And would people be starting on their own with just employing themselves, or is there any employment being created around those businesses?
It's bound to be. Well, basically, he was in a job. The job he was in, he's given it to somebody else. So he's starting out on his own, and hopefully, as he said himself, he would need help as he goes along, hopefully within the next 6 months. So basically, he's creating a job or two. Yeah.
Now, we're coming to the end of the programme, and just ask you a bit again about your own business. You mentioned on the way in, you have, and I mean, it's unique in the current circle. You have still 2 offices, one in Ballygym stuff and one in Cavan. Is that?
That's correct. Yes.
Right. And where do you find the biggest volume of business, or is it spread between the two?
It's spread between the two. We concentrate on doing a lot of the homework, as I say, is in Ballygym stuff. It would be the hub of the basic getting brochures ready and all that, and we do all the farm sales. A lot of the contacts will be coming through there. Cavan was set up in 1996 to concentrate on the housing market. It has done its job very well. It has been we worked out very well with it, and basically it also helps out in relation to lettings, commercials, and basically it gets me into the main town, and it covers. Yes. Basically, we cover the county, plus we cover part of Monaghan, Leitrim, Longford, etc.
You go around the business.
And North Meath. Well, yeah. I was in Meath today, and I was in Derrylin and Fermanagh. So
two things I'm going to touch on before I go. Number one, sponsorship of you sponsored the teams Padraic Smith football. You're involved in the GA. You find that a good advantage to business, yeah?
Oh, any sponsorship, yes, definitely. Yes. Why wouldn't you? As the saying is,
you're giving back a bit.
I sponsored a local team a number of years ago.
Yes.
There has different sponsors now, but again, we'd be involved if we're asked.
And the last thing I'm going to say is the second generation is actively involved. Your son Raymond's
in the business.
Tried to get him to come in tonight, but he's very camera shy. He's not like me or you.
He's not camera shy at all, but he is in the business with me since he was 18 years of age. He's 25 now.
Yeah.
He's 7 or 8 years with me. He knows the business inside out. So basically, it's good to see somebody else following in the footsteps.
Padraic, I'd like to thank you for coming in tonight. It's the early stages of the Business and Enterprise Show, and I know you're keen to come on it because, as you know, we have a good listenership, viewingship, I should say, in Cavan TV. So I want to thank you for coming in and say thank you to the people for watching. And until next week's programme, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.